Welcome to Forum 2019, live from Washington, D.C. I'm Ron Painter, CEO for the National Association of Workforce Boards, and it's my pleasure to sit down right now with Maxine Suka, who is the Director of Workforce Services for KRA.
Yes.
So, welcome, Maxine. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
Tell me about KRA. What's going on with KRA?
KRA is a national leader in workforce development. We have been doing this line of work for over 35 years, and our footprint is largely based out in the East Coast, but we are now expanding our services out on the West Coast, which is where I'm from, San Diego.
Okay, you're located in San Diego.
Yep.
And San Diego's home?
San Diego is home.
Oh, that's awesome. So this gets to be a part of, this is like really real for you.
Yes, it is. I live in the heart and the thick of it.
Awesome. So 35 years, KRA, yep. You've been with them how long? Like, because obviously you've not been in this industry, obviously as long as I have, but how did you get involved in workforce development? What were you doing?
I have been with KRA for the past 6 years, going on 7 years this year, but I've been in workforce development for about 10 plus years now. It is definitely not something where you say that you're going to go to college and you're going to study workforce development and then you're going to work your way up to become a director of workforce operations. But it certainly is an industry that's ever changing, and how I stumbled into it, and I say stumbled because it was something where I used to work with education services, and so I was a financial advisor. I used to, counsel students at the schools, at the colleges, and then when I found out that you actually can have a career center for adults that do a very similar thing, that's how I kind of stumbled into workforce development. And so I started doing supportive services, utilizing some of the WIA, at the time, WIA-funded programs, and then I kind of worked my way into being a career agent, ultimately a performance, overseeing performance, and then now where I'm at today.
Oh, wow. So coming from a background of financial planning, and trust me, obviously something I know so little about, financial planning. Did you find that kind of helped you, brought you a different perspective when you're the front line that you can now share across your system about how people have got to think about how are you putting all this together?
I absolutely can vouch for that. So really working locally and at the frontline level, it gives you a systematic understanding of exactly how do these funded programs work? How do you roll out and strategize on really effectively providing services that are very true and that can help the family unit. So what we do in San Diego, and we work with the San Diego Workforce Partnership, and we've been working for them now, like we cover the entire San Diego County. There's a lot of talk about human-centered design and a customer-centric approach, but our approach is really the family-centric approach. So we look at the family as a unit, because that's the big picture of when you roll out these federally funded programs. You don't just look at how do you administer them, how do you perform, and how do you create and have those incomes or the outcomes of it, but you look at everything in between and how do all of these programs intertwine with outside agencies like cities, like the county, your local level, and the state level, and how do you marry that all together. So it's very innovative, and I can talk about it all day, but yeah, so that's what we're doing. It's a family-centered approach in San Diego.
Well, you brought up you mentioned the word innovation. Let's talk about innovation in the sense that I think as an industry, we sometimes get caught up in the notion about we're regulated. Geez, every industry is regulated. How do you see innovation play out, or how do you talk about innovation at KRA?
We see it as an opportunity. So just with the words Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, so taking the middle that builds the platform, you take the innovation, which is really the opportunity to think outside of the box. You have your rules and your regulations. Not everything is black and white. There are areas in between, the gray areas that you can safely play in, to think about ways that you would benefit not just your direct customer when you're providing direct services, but you can benefit the community as a whole. As we mentioned earlier in the general session, we're really in this thing because we believe that we are the core for workforce development to families and to communities. And with KRA working in conjunction with the Workforce Partnership and across our different clients that we have nationally, that's really the heart of what we bring to the table, is our ability to be forward thinking, our ability to think outside of the box and work with not just our clients, our customers, but even with our staff. Most of the greatest ideas come directly from the folks doing the work.
So you've taken Workforce Act and then flipped it around and said it's the opportunity for innovation, right?
Yes.
That's how you're looking at it. How do you get across to the frontline staff, because there are folks that are every day contending with, KRA does a lot of work with really at-risk populations. So how does the manager of operations, how do you get people who are on the front line to think innovatively? How do you get them outside of what they're experiencing?
A lot of it has to do with the cross-training. So we do a lot of cross-training, a lot of professional and staff development training to get you in that mindset to think that way. Sometimes if you're working at the front level, and I'm guilty of that, is you're just constantly on the grind. You're constantly dealing with customers that walk through the door. Each and every person has a different need at any given point in time. So you're trying to meet all of their needs all at once. And so what we do at KRA is we like to take a step back, and then we also like to be able to supply the resources that our staff needs in order for them to get the job done well and right. And so the ability for us to be innovative thinkers ourselves as the leaders, we're able to really push that out and infuse it really in the bloodline of our staff, so that way they know it just becomes a natural culture and a natural tendency for them to say, okay, if this is the job that needs to be done and these are the rules that I have to work with to get it done, how can I really effectively do that where both parties, where it becomes a win-win situation for both parties?
Do you see, when you because you guys are a service provider, are you seeing more workforce boards talk to you about human-centered design? How do you put the customer at the center of what you're doing? Is that something that you all have really worked with over the last few years?
Yes, I would say as the service provider and also as the one-stop operator, I mean, we're very fortunate to be working closely with a board that actually was awarded the Trailblazer
Peter
Award.
Kallstrom
Yes.
and Andy Hall and the
who's
crew out there.
very forward-thinking, very
Yeah.
forward-thinking, very innovative, providing the flexibility and opportunity for us to think outside of the box. And so with that being our platform and our foundation, we're able to really infuse a lot of different innovations when it comes to just looking at the system as a whole. So what we've done really primarily in San Diego, because that's where I'm based, is really how do we look at a two-gen strategy where you're actually providing services for folks that come from different demographics. Very hard to serve. You're looking at folks in re-entry. We're looking at folks, in the homeless population. A lot of our different funded programs are really how do you help people who have disabilities. So we work with a lot of different funders outside of what we're provided with through WIOA, because we do recognize that there is value to really working with providing quality service as opposed to the quantity. So WIOA, we know it's universal services. Everyone locally who works with WIOA, you're providing a service universally to the population. But the beauty of really focusing and honing in on special demographics, different scenarios that an individual would be actually experiencing, we have the opportunity to work with other like-minded organizations in the county and in the city that fund us to really do individualized program services for these folks.
So as you think about your career, as you think about the KRA, what excites you about what's going on in the industry? What do you really see as, this is cool stuff, this is innovative, this really jazzes me?
It's so funny because it's very hard for me to explain to my family and friends what it is that I do. They're like,
oh,
what do you do? Yeah, it sounds so wow. So what but what excites me the most, and especially like being in this industry for 10 plus years, I mean, that already says something. I can see that really being at the crux of workforce development, the ability to utilize funds for the greater good of the community. Every person needs to work. They
Yeah.
need to work. And it's not just finding a job to meet ends meet, but it's to sustain them and their families. And for me, I can really see through WIOA and through the different innovative ways that a lot of the boards are looking at how do I disperse the funds, where do I invest these dollars, what types of programs should I be investing in. That really excites me because it's not just the same thing that we've constantly been doing over the years. This is the time where we have seen a lot of different movement in the workforce development industry. It's been going up, it's been going down,
Yeah.
but the one thing that remains the same is the ability to think outside of the box, the ability to believe in a dream, and the ability to really sustain the family.
Awesome. I thought afterwards that was a dangerous question to ask, because if you came back and said, really, I don't find anything very exciting about this industry, that was going to be really, really, really bad. But I
this
can't
is-
imagine
yeah.
you do. You have such an infectious personality. I can't imagine you're not a great asset for the frontline staff.
No, I love this industry. I love what I do. Ultimately, like, I've always had a passion to serve people, and now I've found my niche. Like, how do I do that effectively, and how do I do it to reach? I don't necessarily need to reach the masses, but collectively as
Yeah.
a system, we can. All we need to focus on is how do you reach one person,
Yeah.
and that automatically will trigger.
Awesome. Maxine Suka from
Yes.
KRA.
Nice.
Thanks for
Thank
sitting down
you.
with me. I really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Ron.